On the evening of July 17, 2023, Evergrande's official website released three financial reports, including the 2021 financial report, the 2022 mid-year report, and the annual report. Everyone already knows that Evergrande is a mess, but no one expected it to be so bad. A net loss of US 120 billion in 2 years. Its liabilities are as high as RMB 2.447 trillion, or US 334 billion, a figure equal to the annual GDP of Hong Kong or Denmark's 2022 GDP. Meanwhile, Evergrande has less than US 620 million in cash and equivalent assets in hand. Evergrande said it had a net loss of 686.2 billion yuan in 2021 and 125.8 billion yuan in 2022. Due to factors such as lower book asset values, return land, investment losses, and borrowing costs. Evergrande's financial report caused a stir in the Chinese market, making it number 2 on Baidu's hot search list. Evergrande's debt is so high that if it were to borrow money from each of the 1.4 billion people claimed to be in China, it would have to take US $240 out of each person's pocket to make this huge sum. It's an unimaginable amount of debt, but Evergrande managed to accrue it. Many Chinese people are asking what's going on. Why does Evergrande owe so much money? Who do they owe so much money to? Evergrande lost 2.5 trillion yuan. I was dumbfounded when this financial report came out, but I saw a lot of fools saying, "Look at the loss of Evergrande," and they laughed at it. Do you really think Evergrande has suffered a loss? It doesn't lose money. Evergrande used the land to get loans from the banks without contributing a single penny. It's pure leverage without spending anything. Do you know that? And once they have the loans, they buy more land. Now it can't pay back the debt even with all its assets, so it files for bankruptcy. Do you think the bank has lost 2.5 trillion yuan? They don't lose any money. The money that the banks lent to Evergrande is the money that we, the people, have paid for our homes. This 2.5 trillion is your down payment and mortgage. Home buyers, do you think you only lost 2.5 trillion yuan? It's actually 5 trillion, because you pay interest on the home. You've been paying interest for years because what you have bought isn't a ready home, but one under construction. The homes were collateralized by Evergrande to the banks a while ago. Do you have the property right to your home? The court prioritizes protecting the bank. Your home will eventually be auctioned off by the bank to cover its debts. Do you think you can sell the flat? Do you have proof of ownership? When Evergrande built this home, it had no money either. It was the construction company it contracted with that advanced the money. So did the construction company lose a lot of money? They only suffered a partial loss because they didn't pay for the materials, they didn't pay for the construction workers' salaries, and they usually settled the bill when the project was completed. So, these companies and workers shared the loss. The bank earns the interest, the local government earns the tax, and ultimately it is the home buyers who pay the interest. The long-delayed earnings report from Evergrande gives the outside world a first glimpse into the company's dire situation. Evergrande has been long criticized for a lack of disclosure and for being extremely opaque when discussing its debts with creditors. China's real estate industry is a pillar of the national economy and has been one of the driving forces of economic growth over the past 2 decades. According to the World Bank report, the real estate sector accounts for about 30% of China's GDP. In China, home buyers usually close on their purchases and start paying off their mortgage to the bank before they even take possession of their homes. The Chinese government initially attempted to control the blind growth of the real estate sector in 2020 by restricting debt-laden operations. This triggered a freeze of new borrowing, leading to a sudden cash shortage in China's real estate sector. So, Evergrande's capital chain broke.
We bought a finely decorated condo, but now the exterior wall paint isn't finished yet. Anyway, the delivery won't be on schedule. Everything is paid for in advance, and there is a monthly payment on schedule as well. Some owners bought the home for retirement, and some bought it for their children so they could get married. And now it's all rotting here. Homeowners are anxious, and they have to talk to the government.
The construction has stopped for more than 2 years. We have all paid money, but the construction won't start. There are 3 buildings, but not many floors have been built. We are renting right now. We talked to the government, but it brought the police over. They don't care. You talk to the developer of the project, but they dismiss you. So far, it has been pointless. No one is in charge of the development. Since Evergrande Group first defaulted on its obligations in December 2021, it didn't release its 2021 annual report for various reasons. The only available financial data for reference were the semi-annual report published in September 2021 and the indicative financial information of 2021 published in March 2023, which were not audited. In the earnings announcement made by Evergrande on July 17, 2023, another item that attracted the attention of the Chinese media was that due to its own change in accounting treatment, the revenue of previous years had been adjusted by as much as 664.3 billion yuan, or about 92.4 billion US dollars. The change in accounting treatment in layman's terms means that Evergrande had previously, from 2015 to 2020, misrecorded its accounts. It overstated its profits by more than US 90 billion. Evergrande also paid out large dividends to its shareholders based on the profit figures. Since its listing, it has paid out a total of roughly US 13 billion in dividends. In 2020, the year before Evergrande's default, it was still paying generous dividends. Its biggest shareholders are the boss Xu Jiayin and his wife, and the company they control. Evergrande has been falsely branded as one of the world's top 500 companies by constantly borrowing money and making accounting mistakes, and then its owner paid generous dividends and distributed a lot of money to his own family. This is how Evergrande used to be. Now, countless debtors of Evergrande are too distressed to shed tears. Some of the debtors are already on the brink of corporate bankruptcy and trying to hold on under enormous financial pressure. Some have gone to the construction site to move bricks themselves for the sake of their homes. They wish more than anyone else that Evergrande could make a miraculous comeback and get the stalled gears moving. In fact, as early as 2 years ago, it was rumored that Evergrande had US 278 billion in debt. 2 years have passed. Not only hasn't the debt of Evergrande decreased, it has swelled to nearly US 348 billion. In other words, Evergrande's accumulated net loss reached as high as US 113 billion in 2 years, averaging a loss of 1.4 billion yuan or US 153 million per day. It's 4 times its accumulated net profit in the past 8 years when it was in its heyday in China's real estate industry. How did these losses come about? Taking the 2022 figures disclosed by Evergrande as an example, of the RMB 125.8 billion yuan in losses, 43.39 billion yuan were operating losses, 69.37 billion yuan were related to land being repossessed and financial asset impairment losses and other non-operating losses. 13.05 billion yuan were revenue tax expenses. To put it simply, Evergrande's homes failed to sell in the past 2 years, and at the same time, with the plummeting of the real estate market, the value depreciated significantly. In addition, Evergrande's previously purchased land was hoarded for a long time and was forcibly repossessed by the various local governments, resulting in another loss. Since Evergrande defaulted, its property sales continued to decrease. In 2021, its sales fell 48% year-on-year. In 2022, it fell 91% year-on-year. Recently, an Evergrande owner in Kaifeng City, Henan Province, called the mayor's hotline to complain about frequent power outages in his neighborhood, but was ridiculed by the operator, saying he deserved it for buying an Evergrande home. In other words, buying an Evergrande home has become something shameful. Evergrande announced in June 2023 it was launching 16,000 sets of existing homes in 260 cities across the country. In the present overall environment in China, how many people will participate? Various governments have set off a wave of surrendering land without compensation, targeting Evergrande, the falling giant. In November 2022, the Wuhan municipal government announced that it would take back 11 pieces of land without compensation in the Wuhan Science and Technology Tourism City project, in which Evergrande had spent 8 billion yuan or more than US 1.1 billion. And Haikou City took back Evergrande's project covering 544 acres of land without compensation, and another city in Henan Province repossessed 198 acres of Evergrande's land that has been idle for 2 years. According to incomplete statistics, as of 2022, Evergrande had more than 1,977 acres of land repossessed by the local government without compensation due to delinquent land payments and idle land. How should Evergrande clean up its mess, and who will bear the terrible consequences of its huge losses and liabilities in the end? China's central bank once disclosed a set of data that is, 70% of the liabilities of real estate development enterprises are made up of personal advance receipts and advances from upstream and downstream enterprises, and 30% are made up of financial liabilities. This debt structure is very similar to Evergrande's, except that Evergrande is more dependent on upstream and downstream enterprises. Among Evergrande's US $334 billion in debt, contract liabilities, borrowings, and payables respectively amounted to US $100.4 billion, US $85.2 billion, and US $139.5 billion, accounting for 29.58%, 25.12%, and 41.12% of Evergrande Group's total liabilities. The first of these is the contractual liabilities, which refer to the undelivered amount of the signed contract for the sale of homes. The debtors are those homeowners who have yet to get their homes. Evergrande's contractual indebtedness is US $100.4 billion, and if we calculate at 1 million yuan per home, there are still 720,000 families who are eagerly awaiting to move into their new homes. According to Evergrande's disclosure, in 2022, it realized the resumption of 732 guaranteed delivery projects, with a cumulative total of 301,000 units delivered, which settled 300,000 families, but that only met half of its original target. So many people gathered here today. What's going on? Let's have a random interview. Brother, what's going on here today? Originally, I came here today to get my flat, but now there is a change. It's postponed again. It's been postponed repeatedly, once, twice, 3 times, alas. It's really heartbreaking for us ordinary people.
I bought this condo 3 years ago. Now I'm kind of visiting the old place and checking it out. I was so excited before I bought it that I couldn't sleep. I had to buy it. Now what's going on? All these people are here to demand their homes. They didn't come here to buy homes. They are all victims of the rotten-tailed building, and they're here to demand their homes from Evergrande. I don't see anyone coming out to talk to us.
Secondly, borrowings refer to loans from banks, trusts, and other domestic and foreign financial institutions, such as Shenzhen Bank and Bohai Bank, which account for a little over 25% of its total liabilities. Thirdly, accounts payable accounted for the lion's share, over 41% of the total. About US $139 billion is owed to large and small suppliers and builders, including nearly US $83.5 billion in payments for construction materials. A few years ago, Evergrande's leading position in the industry gave it absolute dominance in working with suppliers. Out of trust in its big customers, a steady stream of suppliers would advance funds to deliver materials to Evergrande's doorsteps. Their business scope ranges from reinforced concrete, glass, doors, windows, paints, electrical wiring, piping, ceramic tiles, flooring, aluminum, cabinets, refrigerators, and air conditioning fixtures. Working first and getting paid later is a rule in China's fiercely competitive construction industry. Suppliers, as a result, are tied to Evergrande's giant ship by the IOU notes and sucked into the abyss that knows no bottom. Among them, the Nantong construction teams that have worked most closely with Evergrande are the first to suffer the consequences. Among them, the veteran builders Nantong First Construction and Nantong Sixth Construction have officially declared bankruptcy and reorganization, and Suhong Construction has twice applied for bankruptcy and reorganization. Nantong Third Construction, burdened with US $5 billion in arrears owed by Evergrande, has been on the brink of bankruptcy several times. As early as August 2021, an Evergrande project contracted by Nantong Third Construction posted a suspension of work notice. It read, "The project has been basically completed. Nantong Third Construction has advanced $56 million US dollars. Evergrande has only paid about 5% in cash, and the rest has been paid by commercial paper. But with the expiration of the commercial paper, one after another, Evergrande hasn't been able to honor them." Under heavy debt pressure, Nantong Third Construction has been sued by a number of suppliers, repeatedly listed as an executor by the court, restricted from high consumption, had its equity frozen and ratings downgraded, and is forced to undergo debt restructuring. The former champion of China's construction, Nantong Construction Iron Army, is now almost completely wiped out. The most pathetic thing in the world is to have to pay for work while at the same time being chased frantically by debt collectors. For Evergrande, a huge ship heading for the wreckage, there are also various hard and soft furnishing companies bundled up, though in different categories, but their desperation is the same. Shenzhen Grandland Group, once a first-tier architectural decoration company, still has 1.2 billion USD in outstanding receivables from Evergrande as of the end of 2022, and has filed for bankruptcy reorganization. Many of these companies have filed lawsuits against Evergrande demanding repayment of their debts, but the road is doomed to be long with no hope in sight. Of course, Evergrande also wants to go bankrupt, only the government won't allow it. The day after Evergrande released its financial report on July 18th, Evergrande Xi'an was filed for bankruptcy by Xi'an Wei-Inning Trading. Let's check what kind of company this Evergrande Real Estate Xi'an Limited is. According to the business listing site Chichacha, this company is riddled with debt, and among the red blocks we find an interesting phenomena. It's micro-enterprise. Let's look at how small this micro-enterprise is. Its registered capital is 116.67 million yuan. In other words, its paid-in capital amounted to 105 million yuan. Since when did the standard for micro and small enterprises in our country become so high? Based on the national standards for micro and small enterprises, this company doesn't meet any of them. Of course, it's all history. Let's look to the future. This company is filed for bankruptcy, but the court must approve the bankruptcy before it can go into actual bankruptcy. The court may also dismiss the bankruptcy application. If the company goes bankrupt, what will happen to the people who paid for their homes but haven't gotten them yet? The result could be terrifying. They will get nothing except a lot of debt. You must pay attention to the name of this company. It's called Evergrande Real Estate Xi'an Limited, not Xi'an Branch. What's the difference between the two names? A company filing for bankruptcy or being filed for bankruptcy is often a sign that it's at the end of its rope. It can be assumed that there is nothing left of the company and it's not capable of continuing to fulfill the contract. However, the case has now been withdrawn by the applicant. In March 2023, the founder Xu Jiayin painted a pie in the sky. That is, the company's core task of the next 3 years is to ensure the delivery of homes. But in order to accomplish this task, it's expected to need US 35 to 42 billion in financing to ensure the construction work can be resumed and production continues. But the question is, who will lend him the money? In June 2023, Evergrande again announced that it was going to launch a wild offer of 16,000 units of existing homes in 260 cities across China. But it's no longer easy to get current Chinese to shell out for a home.
Still trying to rip off the leaks of those born after the year 2000? Go on dreaming. Those born after year 2000 have declared on the web that we champion the 3 no's: no mortgage, no car loan, and no children. Every morning we wake up and recite these lines 3 times. Children and grandchildren have their own blessings. Without children and grandchildren, I can enjoy my life. We pity all the parents. We don't have these worries when we have no children. Mothers worry when their children children travel outside home, but I have no worries when I have no children. This is what we call a perfect woman, a woman with no offspring. We don't marry, we don't work, we don't buy a home, we don't have children. When one person is well fed, the whole family is not hungry. You still attempt to harvest them? Are you kidding? Even the capitalists would weep when they see them.
The Evergrande debt crisis highlights that China's economy is facing one of its toughest challenges in decades, and that the government's ability to mediate the problem appears to be exhausted.